The encounter that would later be framed as Bruce Lee versus Jackie Chan didn't happen in a ring, didn't involve a crowd, and didn't resemble a fight in the way history likes to remember confrontations, because this wasn't about dominance or rivalry. It was about transmission, about a moment where one era of martial arts quietly handed something essential to the next. At the time, Bruce Lee was already operating at a level that bent gravity around him, a man whose presence on set recalibrated everyone's understanding of speed, control, and responsibility. While Jackie Chan was still a hungry young stuntman, talented, fearless, and largely invisible to the world beyond the frame, absorbing everything with the intensity of someone who knew this might be his only chance to learn from a living standard rather than a book or legend. They met not as equals, not as adversaries, but as two men moving at different points along the same road. And the first thing that shocked Jackie wasn't Bruce's power. It was his restraint. On set, Bruce didn't behave like a star who demanded space. He behaved like a craftsman obsessed with process, measuring distance repeatedly, rehearsing movements until the illusion of violence was perfect and the reality of it minimal. Jackie watched this closely because he came from a background where pain was accepted as tuition, where getting hit was simply part of the job. And Bruce challenged that assumption without ever stating it outright. The incident that later fueled rumors of a fight happened during a rehearsal sequence. Fast, unplanned, and human. Jackie, eager to prove himself, committed too hard on an entry, closing distance a fraction too quickly, and Bruce's hand, already in motion, connected with Jackie's head. The impact wasn't theatrical, but it was real enough to drop Jackie to the floor, and in that instant, the entire set froze, because this was the moment when legend could have hardened into intimidation. Is he reading me by any of this? Musicians continue to interpret the fact that nothing does sound so good. Instead, Bruce reacted in a way that surprised everyone present. He didn't step back to protect his image. He didn't dismiss it as an accident of stunt work. He dropped immediately beside Jackie, apologizing repeatedly, holding his head, checking his eyes, his breathing, his balance, staying there until Jackie was fully aware and safe. That response mattered more than the strike itself. Jackie later said that the pain faded quickly, but the care did not. Bruce treated responsibility as inseparable from skill, and that idea lodged itself deep in Jackie's thinking. In an industry where stunt performers were expected to absorb damage silently, Bruce insisted that precision was a moral obligation, not just a technical one. Jackie watched Bruce halt production entirely, adjust choreography, slow the pace, and personally walk him through revised spacing, all without a hint of impatience. For Jackie, this was not weakness. It was authority of a different kind. What followed was not a rivalry, but a quiet mentorship that unfolded in fragments, between takes, in conversations, in demonstrations that weren't announced as lessons. Bruce spoke about efficiency, about ending movement where it no longer served function, about how real mastery reduces danger rather than amplifies it. Jackie listened, not as a fan, but as a practitioner, noticing how Bruce could generate terrifying speed without ever looking rushed, how he could stop a strike millimeters from target without losing balance. Released by music, how control wasn't something added at the end, but built into the beginning of every motion. At one point, Bruce demonstrated how a single committed movement could end an exchange before it began, stepping in just as Jackie initiated motion, intercepting intent rather than reacting to action. And Jackie felt something shift in his understanding. Up until then, he believed speed and toughness were the currency of survival. Bruce showed him that timing and responsibility mattered more. That lesson would later echo through Jackie's entire career, not in the way he fought, but in the way he built action cinema, prioritizing clarity, rehearsal, and protection even while pushing physical limits. It was in Marriage. The myth of Bruce Lee versus Jackie Chan often misses this entirely, reframing a moment of instruction as confrontation, because confrontation sells better than mentorship. But those who were there understood that what happened between them wasn't conflict, it was calibration. Bruce didn't see Jackie as a challenger. He saw potential. And Jackie didn't see Bruce as an opponent. He saw a standard he hadn't yet reached, but now understood was possible. This encounter altered Jackie's trajectory profoundly. He began questioning the culture that glorified injury, insisting later in his own productions on rehearsals so precise that danger was controlled, even when spectacle remained high. He adopted Bruce's philosophy that if you can't stop yourself, you don't truly control anything. And that idea became the spine of Jackie's approach to action, blending comedy, timing, and safety into something new. In that sense, Bruce Lee didn't just influence Jackie Chan, he redirected him. And Bruce, for his part, treated the moment as unremarkable in the way masters often do, because to him, teaching responsibility was as natural as demonstrating speed. A live crime was on day 2. He didn't speak publicly about the incident. He didn't frame it as a lesson delivered. He simply acted in alignment with his values, trusting that those who needed to see it would. It was a lack of dispelment and interruption that those who needed to see it would. What most people don't realize is that the real impact of that encounter didn't show itself immediately. It unfolded slowly, quietly, over years. As Jackie carried Bruce's example with him into spaces Bruce would never enter himself. In the days after the incident, Jackie noticed that Bruce didn't avoid him, didn't grow distant or formal out of embarrassment. If anything, Bruce became more attentive, checking spacing more carefully whenever Jackie was involved, explaining small adjustments with patience rather than authority. And that consistency told Jackie something crucial. Care wasn't a performance, it was a habit. Bruce didn't turn kindness on when eyes were watching. It was simply how he operated. Jackie began to see patterns in Bruce's behavior that went beyond fighting. Bruce arrived early, warmed up methodically, rehearsed transitions others ignored, and treated every movement as if it carried consequence. When someone made a mistake, Bruce corrected the process rather than the person. When something went right, he rarely praised the outcome, focusing instead on why it worked so it could be repeated safely. Jackie absorbed this without realizing he was being taught, because Bruce didn't teach by declaring lessons, he taught by modeling standards. As production continued, Jackie noticed something else that contradicted the myth surrounding Bruce Lee. He ended up going away in the cabin. Bruce wasn't reckless. He was conservative in the most disciplined sense. He reduced risk wherever possible, not because he feared injury, but because he understood its cost. He believed that unnecessary danger diluted focus, and diluted focus made true expression impossible. This ran counter to the culture Jackie had grown up in, where endurance was praised more than precision, and suffering was treated as proof of commitment. Bruce quietly dismantled that belief simply by refusing to participate in it. The death sentence former approval published an interview with the second assault on the LSS engaged universe. C. Between takes, Bruce would sometimes demonstrate movements slowly, breaking them down to their bare mechanics, showing how power came from alignment rather than effort, how speed emerged from relaxation rather than tension. My speed emerged from relaxation rather than tension. Jackie watched closely, because what Bruce showed wasn't just faster, it was calmer. That calmness fascinated him. Jackie had always associated intensity with effectiveness. Bruce showed him that intensity could be internal, invisible, and still decisive. There was one afternoon, remembered by several crew members, when Jackie asked Bruce why he trained the way he did, why he seemed so focused on economy rather than spectacle. Bruce answered without looking up, saying that spectacle fades the moment something goes wrong, but structure remains. He said that anyone can look impressive when conditions cooperate, but real skill shows itself when conditions collapse. Jackie didn't fully understand the depth of that statement at the time, but it stayed with him, resurfacing years later when he found himself responsible for entire crews, budgets, and lives. But don't allow your dreams to make away. You can design a dream. The irony of the so-called Bruce Lee versus Jackie Chan story is that it frames a transfer of wisdom as a clash, because clashes are easier to sell than inheritance. In truth, Bruce never saw Jackie as someone to be measured against. Like, this is so different. He saw him as someone still forming, someone whose fearlessness needed direction rather than suppression. And Jackie sensed that. He felt seen not as an expendable stuntman, but as a developing craftsman. That recognition mattered profoundly. After Bruce's death, when Jackie began rising through the ranks, taking on leading roles and creative control, the memory of that encounter gained new clarity. Jackie found himself in situations where younger performers were eager, reckless, willing to risk injury for approval. Each time, he remembered Bruce kneeling beside him on that set, apologizing, stopping everything, insisting that no shot was worth a human cost. Jackie realized that Bruce had given him a template for leadership long before he needed one. That template shaped Jackie's entire philosophy. He insisted on exhaustive rehearsals not to perfect danger, but to eliminate it. He designed action sequences where humor, timing, and environment replaced brute force. He built systems where stunt performers were protected, not sacrificed, and when accidents happened, as they inevitably did, he responded the same way Bruce had, immediately, personally, without deflection. People often credit Jackie's innovation to creativity alone, but beneath the creativity was a moral framework inherited from Bruce Lee. In interviews years later, Jackie struggled to articulate why Bruce mattered so much to him, often defaulting to stories about speed or power, because those were easier to communicate. But when pressed, he always returned to character. He spoke about how Bruce never made him feel small for being inexperienced, how Bruce never used authority to intimidate, how responsibility seemed to radiate naturally from him. Jackie didn't describe Bruce as someone who dominated rooms. He described him as someone who elevated them. That is why calling their encounter a fight misses the truth entirely. Nothing was settled by force that day. Nothing was won or lost in the conventional sense. What changed martial arts history wasn't a blow or a fall, but a response. A response that demonstrated that mastery includes accountability, that speed without care is incomplete, and that the highest level of control is the ability to stop, not just strike. Bruce Lee's legacy is often framed in terms of revolution, breaking styles, challenging tradition, redefining combat. All of that is true, but it's incomplete without understanding how he treated the people around him. His ideas survived not just because they worked, but because they were carried forward by people who trusted his values as much as his techniques. Jackie Chan became one of those carriers, not by imitation, but by application. When Jackie later fused martial arts with comedy, timing, and cinematic storytelling, he wasn't abandoning Bruce's seriousness. He was extending it into a new form. He understood, as Bruce had, that martial arts are about expression, and expression must be honest to endure. Humor, like combat, requires timing, control, and empathy. Jackie's films embodied those principles, even when the tone shifted, because the foundation remained the same. Looking back, the Untold encounter that changed martial arts history wasn't a dramatic showdown. It was a moment of responsibility witnessed by a young man at exactly the right time. Bruce Lee didn't need to defeat Jackie Chan to influence him. He needed only to show him what mastery looks like when things go wrong. That lesson proved more durable than any technique because it shaped how Jackie approached every challenge that followed. In the end, history wasn't changed by a clash between two men. It was changed by continuity. One generation passing not just skill, but values to the next. Bruce Lee's influence didn't stop with the movements he perfected. It continued through the standards he lived by, standards that Jackie Chan absorbed, adapted, and carried into a different era. reaching audiences Bruce never could. That is the untold truth behind the headline. Not rivalry, but responsibility. Not domination, but transmission. And in that quiet transfer, far from rings and scorecards, martial arts history took a turn that still echoes today. Now,